Well, welcome back to the True Man podcast. Today, I'm talking with Tim Green. He is a transformational solutions architect at Solutions Mastery. And yes, that was a mouthful for me, but I enjoyed spitting it out. So, Tim, welcome to the True Man podcast.
Thank you. I appreciate having being invited as a guest.
Well, we absolutely love having you here. So listen, nobody becomes a transformational specialist without having a journey of their own, I found. So how do you get from, there's no straight line, we know. So how do you get from point A to point B and all of a sudden start this wonderful journey of helping people with transformation?
Okay, I'm going to start from the end instead of with the end in mind. And that is, as COVID hit, it sort of gave me a gift because a long time ago, an event that I won't go into too much detail given the time we have, but a life-changing event occurred, which made me realize I despised every job I'd ever had. And it wasn't because the jobs were inherently bad, but I realized I either needed to work for myself or find a job that had the three things that Daniel Pink talked about, which was mastery, autonomy, and purpose. And I'd never found a job like that. And I've spent most of my life actually going in a certain direction and sort of refining and figuring out the solution, getting rid of the hype. I'm very much a sciencey guy. And so I'm sort of the myth buster of woo-woo. I myself have had quite a bit of exposure to woo-woo, including being the head of a university organization around neo-paganism.
Now, for folks that don't know, tell them what woo-woo is. Not everybody knows.
Okay, so woo-woo is when you have sort of, you talk about something spiritual that these days is more like pseudoscientific than scientific. So it's like, okay, I'm just gonna visualize the perfect life and it will come true.
Mm-hmm.
And nobody in the world would prefer more than me that be true. That the
we would all
lost
that.
people. That's right. Yeah. As one of my girlfriend's mothers, this was many years ago, but I loved it. If wishes were horses, beggars would ride. But I'm sorry, there's actual work, science, and trial and error and iteration involved in succeeding. It takes as long as it takes.
For sure. But you got to put in the work. And then sometimes it requires somebody walking alongside you to help you get there. So how do you become an expert in this niche? And then how do you walk alongside people from that perspective?
Oh, thank you. That's a wonderful question. So the way I sort of became an expert in this is I've spent my life, I've always been, as I said, kind of a science geek and really interested in that. And, you know, I started in personal development or my own personal development journey to get where I wanted to be way back when Tony Robbins was Anthony Robbins. It was my mother who right. actually gave me my first book, and what I can't even remember the name of it, but it was his first book anyway. Can't remember the name. I'm too old.
And they came in tapes. They were the tapes, right? For you young kids, they came in the tapes. That's where Tony Robbins started.
I bought both. I had the book first from my mother, and then I bought the tapes later. And yeah, this is way before CDs, but after 8 tracks.
Yep.
So really what it was I liked his material and I liked a lot of the stuff I read, but I found it alone stopped far shy of what actually worked. I found, and especially now, that people, and this is where the woo-woo comes in, they want to show you the effortless, easy solution, which anybody can do without any effort. And that's, to put it gently, not authentic. It really is a hero's journey, and it really will take struggle for most people. A fortunate few who make it in the news, maybe it's easy, but for the rest of us, we have to do the work, and we have to learn to be humble. We might think we're the smartest person in the room, and maybe we are, but that's not enough. We still need, as you've
Yeah.
said, other people to sort of guide us through the journey. And many times it's a long search to find the right person to fit.
It can be, you know. Now I got caught up in the woo woo thing just because I think it's fun to say.
Mhm.
But I do want to circle back to something that you touched on, and I think this is important because I had a problem with this in my career. Really not finding something that I was happy with, that really, you know, hit me between the eyes, that I was passionate about. And so, you know, there are other men that listen to the podcast, and it could be somebody that's listening to us right now, and they're going, dang, yeah, I never hit on something that I'm passionate about and I love. Maybe you've hit on this in your coaching practice, but
Mhm.
how can these guys come out of the depths of despair, right? Their quiet desperation. They put their work boots on, they go to work every day, they hate it. How can they get out of that cycle?
Um, Now I'm going to go back to what I said earlier, which is it takes as long as it takes. I'm not myself. I'm still on that journey. I'm not out of the cycle, but I'm right on the edge. I would say mainly you do have to find what you're passionate about. And one of the best ways, I love the way Gary Vee put it, is like taste lots of things, sample lots of things. I didn't realize that power kiting, which I learned about from a TED talk, which led me to kite surfing, which led me to, that's too expensive for me to do frequently right now, to hanging out at my local river and flying a kite, and how in a lot of ways that was transformational for me, because it gave me, it's sort of very meditative. And so we don't know what we don't know. And the main thing I would do is anything that even slightly intrigues you, go down that rabbit hole and sample it for a bit. Find out people who are passionate about it, who can probably sort of shortcut your journey. Um, and maybe you go, yeah, that's not really for me, but maybe you do. But without getting exposure to things, it gets back to, you don't know what you don't know. When I picked up a drum, from my earlier reference to the traumatic event in my life, the drum saved me. I would probably honestly be dead if I hadn't picked up a drum and started playing it, just a hand drum. And let me put it this way. I am an absolute optimistic nihilist. And you can go to, I can't remember the website. Oh, Kurzgesagt. And it's wonderful. It describes what an optimistic nihilist. Before they taught me what I am, I didn't have the word. But essentially it is that life is meaningless, so you can choose what you want it to mean. So that's a good news thing, not a bad news thing.
Right.
Right. And playing the drum was for me transformational. It was a place to rest. It was a place to understand community. And it then put me on the path. It kept me afloat long enough to realize the path I need to follow. I had an experience where literally it was, I hate my job. I will hate every job I ever have until I either work for myself or work for the ideal employer. And as I said, I'm still on that path, but I know I'm right on the edge because now I'm getting outside verification. People are telling me, you got the stuff, Tim. People need to hear about what you have to say.
So now, Tim, I'm not going to lay you off the hook here unless you want to be left off the hook, because we're all about comeback stories on this show. So I can't help but be curious if you're willing to share.
I am.
What's the backstory here that even leads you to, you're talking about the drums. So what's the backstory? What's the depths of despair for Tim Green to get you to this point?
Okay. I've only recently thought about this because I have trouble articulating. I talk too much. I have too much science. So I've really thought about this story, and really what it comes down to is one day a specific day, July 9th, 2003. I pick up the phone and it is Transport Canada. Transport Canada, for those Americans who don't know what it is, which might be your audience, is the organization who books the schedule of flights, private and public. And they said, or sorry, I think it was actually my roommate. Either way, I learned suddenly that my two closest friends and roommates hadn't landed yet. Several hours after they were scheduled to land at the private airport or the small airport in Calgary. I knew immediately they were dead. It gets that heavy that suddenly. And although many people were like, oh, well, they might be alive, it's like, well, no, normally if you don't land on time and you flew over the mountains, we know what's happened. So the despair went to the level of, the easiest way for me to solve this problem is just to end my life so I don't have to deal with this feeling.
Yeah.
And the only thing I did that worked, and I actually have a video on YouTube that hasn't been watched by anybody really, but I simply gave myself, I said, I'm going to give myself a year. If I still feel like I want to end my life, I can still do it in a year. That's how I survived the first year. As I just said, I will give myself a year respite from that consideration to decide, can I recover? Can I bring myself back far enough to want to continue to live? And that's really dark, but when you're in that place, maybe that's what you need to just say, you know what? The option of ending my life can be delayed by a year. That's what it took. And it was in fact drums and the community I found. And I'm absolutely not religious. As I said, I'm an optimistic nihilist. When I would say though, when I play drums, especially in a circle, if there's any time I believe in God for somebody who's a complete atheist, that's when I believe in God, because you really get a sense of detachment from ego, right? It's just like, here's a circle. And as long as I connect to the bass beat, more people is better. Unlike most instruments, percussion is join us together, we're better. Versus, oh, be quiet, I got to play my guitar solo. Everybody shut up, I need to be glorified. That in that circle, in that community, in that mentality, more people is better. And that got me through my first year, made me a different person, made me grateful, made me understand that the insights and my survival of that is something that I should share, ultimately for the purpose of being able to teach people. I figured out a lot of things and how to do them well using science, and to get rid of the fluff, to get rid of the woo-woo, so that, because I feel it's really critical that people understand what really works. I refuse to give people false hope. It's going to take work. It's going to take determination, but there's always a way to do it as long as you're willing to put in that work until you succeed. It was, I think, Jim Rohn who said, I will climb this mountain or die upon it. And after years of trying to license my products as a product developer and inventor, I realized that was the way to go, is that setting a time-bound goal is a failure, because when you reach the year and you haven't achieved it, you feel like a failure. If you said, I will do this and adjust my course until I achieve it, is bulletproof. And every day you achieve the effort on a time-boxed basis, I'll spend an hour doing this, you've always succeeded, and you've got that small win to keep you going until you achieve it.
This is an interesting story. And what intrigues me a little bit here is that I've never heard anybody describe thinking about taking their own life and then like giving themselves a year, which there's a lot of things that come into my mind as I hear that. I'm just wondering how somebody has the discipline. I don't even know if that's the right word, Tim, but I'm going to use it. the discipline to go, well, I don't like myself right now, but I'm going to give myself a year to figure it out. Like, how do you,
Right.
how does that happen?
Well, it isn't even so much that I didn't like myself. It was more like, why don't more people like me? Why is it that the two
So you really internalize.
exceptional people,
Yeah.
the two exceptional people who recognize me as somebody worthy of friendship, of love, whatever it is, were gone.
Yeah.
So it was more about that. It was like, can I make my life better in the next year? And one of the other things that got me through it is thinking about how they would feel, how they would be proud and happy for me.
Yeah, Tim, that's heavy stuff. And
Is
I think, what I feel compelled to tell you in this moment is that you are worthy. You are loved. I'm sure that they uh, do feel that your life's worth something. And, you've got a story, and I can tell you're still in a lot of pain.
the irony is, I'm sorry for interrupting that.
No,
I'm really not. My life is amazing, but going back there is what brings it up. And the
yeah,
reason I haven't to this point, or very little, is because, as you could tell,
yep,
this isn't a fake origin story. This is the real shit that happened in my life. I hope swearing is okay. But as a result of that, I have become a far better person, a far more grateful person, a far more empathetic person, because all of us, over the age of 3,
yeah,
at some point will inevitably lose somebody we truly love. And I want to be able to shortcut success, shortcut the way I survived it. That's what my video is about. That one video I have that nobody's watched. It's called How to Survive the Worst Day in Your Life.
yeah.
And, the bottom line is, I don't care about promoting that video. I care about making results for other people. And I care about taking the years it's taken me to get where I am and saying, I can help you shortcut this. You don't even have to believe me. Try it. And if it doesn't work, tell me so I can make it better.
Yeah, I mean, what's somebody common topic, maybe, I guess, on the True Man podcast, and something that we talk a lot about in men's small group. The wound, the hurt, whatever it is, needs to be addressed. And sometimes that's a painful thing to go through, but necessary to move on. Otherwise, it's just baggage holding you back. And short of the music, how are you dealing with that wound and beginning to move forward?
Well, first of all, is it okay if I swear?
I prefer you
Okay, fair
don't,
enough.
but
Okay, so I would say, and this is going to sound, after crying in public, this is going to sound hypocritical, but suck it up, Buttercup. The bottom line is, the research shows, I know that's shocking, but that's really how I feel. I'm a contradiction. Bottom line is, ruminating on the past does you no good. There's 2 values to the past in my mind, and that is lessons learned, like the
yeah,
lessons I've learned, and treasure your beautiful and special memories.
yeah,
Otherwise, leave the past where it belongs, because you can never go back there. So the best way, honestly, to address the past is to say, screw it. What can I do now to make my life better? If I feel a certain way, there's a wonderful book. I read like 50 or listen to about 50 plus books a year. And there's one book where this guy talks about action and commitment therapy. And what he says, which is so brilliant, is he says, the feeling of confidence follows the actions of confidence. And because of my background in psychology, things like cognitive behavioral therapy tell us that whining about the past and thinking about the past repeatedly doesn't help you. But saying, here's where I am now, what can I do in the present to make my future better? So oftentimes it's about learn from the past, but then act in the present to make a better future.
Right.
If you're afraid of spiders, sorry, but Freud was wrong. He was crazy, revolutionary for his time, but wrong in modern times, where you can overcome a phobia in about half an hour with something like cognitive behavioral therapy. So it's a matter of, scared or not, do the best you can, challenge yourself in that Goldilocks zone, go as hard as you can. It's like going to the weight room, push as much challenge as you can sustainably, and you will get better. So the way to deal with the past is to learn from it, take the love from it, but otherwise leave it behind and learn how to move forward with immediate action in the direction you want to go.
Right. Do you have a resource available that you maybe like to provide that to help people do that?
I don't actually have a checklist. I need to make a checklist. I do have one, actually. That's not true, because I do have one, but it's not finished yet. I'm still working on the language, which is, ironically, as verbose as I am, I have trouble making it concise enough. I will have one.
Well,
but
we're all a
anybody
work
is
in
welcome.
progress, Tim. So give yourself a break on that.
Totally. Well, I love that, because this is one of the things. I'm less of a Tony Robbins fan than I used to be, but bottom lines is, he said that is like our purpose in life, and Buddha said it too, is to sort of find our happiness, but also to become that we're a masterpiece in the making, and that's a continuous thing. So I completely believe that. People can reach out to me. I don't know the link. Can I share it in the chat? I've already given it to you for my LinkedIn.
Yeah. So listen, I put we're going to put all of Tim's contact information in the show notes, and that's how you can catch up with him. And
right. And I'm happy to do a 30-minute with anybody. The only stipulation is, if you don't plan to act on it, or you plan to make excuses, understand that you're shortchanging yourself. Right? Saying it's not the right time. It's like,
yeah,
pull the trigger. You might screw up, but you'll get better. It's like podcasts, which I'm sure you know.
Oh man. Yeah. It's a work in progress.
You got
to do it. But you know, I'm a big and of course you can read this. I think any self-improvement person will tell you that if you're not in action, not pushing forward in action, you're virtually not moving. And I have really had to learn that. It's not, I often tell people, well, I'm not natural behind the mic, but at this point I'm starting to feel pretty natural behind the mic. And it's just because I took action on it. Yes. It wasn't comfortable. I still get extremely nervous, before an interview. Not so much for me, but I just want to make sure that I do a good job so that I can edify my guests and put them in the best possible position. And so it's hard, but the point is, I guess, of telling that story is that, I'm in action, I'm moving forward, and every show I think gets better and better. If you think that, go out and tell Apple how great I am and give me a good review.
Right. Well, respect, because I mean, first of all, your audio is good. And I learned a long time ago from taking a course on YouTube that even if you have terrible video, it's mostly matters if you have great audio and your skills. I'm a longtime teacher. I'm maybe a third-time podcast guest as of this episode.
Ooh, kind of a rookie.
Yeah, I'm kind of a rookie, but I have a lot of experience speaking in front of people.
Yeah.
But just to give your audience a sense of, I'm pretty confident as a speaker by and large. But the first time I stood in front of 100 Chinese children, when I first spoke in front of the largest crowd I had ever spoken in front of, I almost ran out of the room.
Yeah.
And I'm not timid, and I'm not outgoing. I'm very outgoing. And I'll tell you, you're crushing it, because like your interview skills, your voice, everything. I don't do false compliments, because I think they steal from people's success. Um, you're a great interviewer, and you have the voice, the confidence, the way you ask questions and stuff. Like I said, I don't bother saying that, because people don't believe me
Well, you
if I
embarrass me.
give fake compliments.
You, you embarrass me. I don't know. Can anybody tell I'm red right now? I'm red in the face. You embarrass me. Thank you. I appreciate that. I really and truly do. I enjoy what I do, and it's always a pleasure to meet people. And I really love historic things here on the True Man podcast, and I love it when people listen to the podcast, but if you go out to YouTube, you get to see True Man history. It's the first time I think I've ever interviewed somebody in a robe drinking champagne, and I absolutely loved every minute of it. In fact, I'm jealous. It's entirely possible I may do the next show in a robe drinking champagne because that's my show and
That's
I
pretty
can. Yeah.
crazy and unique.
Yeah,
Yes.
we might give that a shot because I do commonly embarrass myself on the show and put myself out there. Actually, it's really odd because it makes me feel uncomfortable, but I do crazy things on the podcast that I don't normally do. It's out of character for me. But I think
How
it's
you
having
grow.
yeah, I think it's having great guests like you that push me forward. So Tim, I want to thank you for being on the show today. Any words of wisdom you'd like to leave us with before we go today?
I'm just repeating myself, but the bottom line is act on it immediately. You can adjust your course as you go. And believe it or not, that's actually a scientific approach, right? You do the experiment, you collect the data, and you learn from that data and you make it better. Most people shortchange themselves on that. So act immediately. Bottom line.
Awesome. That's a great way to end the show. So Tim, thanks for being with us today. And this show actually is a special show we're doing on Potapalooza. And so Tim was a guest from the audience that has been joining us. And so it's been pretty epic, a little hectic, but we enjoyed meeting you. And we maybe look forward to catching up with you down the road. Thanks a lot, Tim.
Thanks, Mike. I appreciate it. Bye-bye.